This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Arsenal and Liverpool lose as Manchester City take charge of the title race. Fulham are no longer on the beach, but who is? And with a huge Game Week 34 on the horizon, we take a look at the fixtures and the players you should be targeting. Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I'm Don Crofts, I hope you're well, and today we are all in on Game Week 34. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the doubles, and we're going to be highlighting those single Game Week fixtures that you should not ignore. We'll also, of course, be suggesting a few waiver options who could help you win your Game Week, and maybe even that league title you have been dreaming about. But first, let's take a look at all the results from a very dramatic Game Week 33 with one game left to play, and it all began at St James's Park on Saturday lunchtime. It finished Newcastle United or Spurs 0. Alexander Isak with 2 goals and Anthony Gordon with a goal and 2 assists. Gordon has now scored against every Big Six side at St James's Park this season. He's also returned in every single home fixture except for that defeat to Nottingham Forest in Game Week 19. Then in the 3 o'clocks it finished Brentford 2, Sheffield United 0, an own goal from Arblaster and a goal from Onyeka, the difference between the two sides. A clean sheet for Brentford as well, who have a lovely run from now until the end of the season, and Sergio Reguilon with maximum bonus points for the Bees as well. Get him if you can. Burnley 1, Brighton 1 at Turf Moor. Burnley with just 1 defeat in their last 6 now, but they only have 1 win in that time as well. They're fast becoming the draw specialists of the Premier League. Josh Brownhill got their goal. An own goal bailed out Brighton and earned them a point. It finished Manchester City 5, Luton 1 at the Etihad. Erling Haaland, Kovacic, Vardiol and Jeremy Doku among the scorers for Manchester City. Ross Barkley getting a consolation for the Hatters. Nottingham Forest 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2 at the City Ground. Managers who invested in Cunha a few weeks ago finally getting their rewards as he finished with 2 goals and maximum bonus points. Hwang came off the bench for Wolves as well. He's a player to keep an eye on ahead of this double Game Week 34 coming up. Morgan Gibbs-White was on the scoresheet for Forest. And then in the late kickoff on Saturday night, it finished Bournemouth 2, Manchester United 2. Dom Solanke opened the scoring for the home side. Fernandes equalised. Justin Kluivert put Bournemouth ahead. Fernandes equalised. There was no Antoine Semenyo due to injury, so the flip-flop points run could continue for him in Game Week 34 if he is fit. On to Sunday, and what a Sunday it was. It finished Liverpool 0, Crystal Palace 1. A shock result as Eze scores the winner for the Eagles. Liverpool finished with an XG of 3.04 but failed to find the back of the net. Crystal Palace, to be fair to them, finished with an XG of 2.13. It's 2 home defeats on the spin for Liverpool now. Is their title challenge in tatters? At the London Stadium it was West Ham 0, Fulham 2. Massive apologies to Fulham, who apparently, it turns out, are not on the beach. Sorry about that. They absolutely battered West Ham in this one at the London Stadium. They finished with an XG of 3.61, so edging towards 4 goals. It could have been even worse than it already was for David Moyes' side. And then in the final game of the day at the Emirates, it finished Arsenal 0, Aston Villa 2. A deserved win for Villa, who were without Douglas Luiz, but it did not matter. Substitute Leon Bailey put them in front, and Ollie Watkins ended the game with a 2nd goal. And those results for Arsenal and Liverpool mean that the title race is now firmly in the hands of Manchester City. At the time of recording, there is 1 game left to play. Chelsea against Everton at Stamford Bridge. That one takes place on Monday night, so we'll see what happens in that one. But already there have been all sorts of potentially season-defining moments at the top and bottom of the table. There is a load to talk about. So let's get started with Game Week 23's winners and losers.
The FPL Draft Zone. Winners and losers.
Our first winner this weekend is Anthony Gordon. The former Everton man continues to have an incredible season for Newcastle. His form at St James's Park is on another level as well. He has returned in every home game there so far this season, bar one. And this weekend's points tally was his best of the campaign so far. 17 points he finished with, a goal, 2 assists, maximum bonus. He's got 10 goals for the season now. He's got 13 assists as well. And Newcastle are back in the race for Europe thanks to him, and also thanks to Alexander Isak, who has now got 7 goals in his last 6 games. Unbelievably, that is the most consecutive games Isak has put together all season. He is yet to play more than 6 games in a row, so we are now in uncharted territory for the Swede, but his form is helping his side to mount a late charge for a European place. It is between Newcastle, Manchester United and West Ham United for that 6th place. And Newcastle have some good fixtures coming up, including home games against Sheffield United and Brighton. There was a time not so long ago where owners of Alexander Isak may well have considered trading him out as a result of his injury problems, and there have been quite a lot of injury problems. But despite his limited game time this season, he has now got 17 goals in just 24 games. He is averaging 5.4 points a game, and that puts him 10th on the list of highest points per game players. So if he can stay fit next season, Isak should be very high on your wish list come draft night. Another winner this week is Cunha, who scored twice in his first start for Wolves since returning from injury. A lot of draft managers moved early to secure his signature after he returned to training a few weeks ago, and until this week they have been left very disappointed by his minutes and his points return. But this week he came good. 12 points, maximum bonus, and some very nice fixtures ahead, including home games against Bournemouth, Luton and Crystal Palace. All hail Cunha! As for losers, I think we have to just pinpoint a whole team this week, and that is Spurs assets. Spurs had a day to forget at St James's Park. They've now conceded 13 goals in their last 6 games. James Maddison has had just 1 return in his last 6 games. Kulusevski has just 1 return in his last 7 games. Son has 1 goal and only 1 goal in his last 5. Richarlison remains injured, and their run from here on in is grim. Arsenal at home next, then trips to Chelsea and Liverpool, and they also have a game against Manchester City to look forward to, if that is the right phrase. Maybe not look forward to. A game against Manchester City in Gameweek 37. So all this means that if you own Spurs assets, it may well be time to think about binning them off, because they are crawling over that line in the race for the Champions League, and they might not get there before Aston Villa. Manchester United defenders also deserve a mention this week. United's run is not that bad, with their next 3 matches seeing them up against Sheffield United at home, Burnley at home, and then Crystal Palace away. But I cannot see any way they're going to keep a clean sheet when you look at them in action. Teams seem to cut through them with ease. Bournemouth did it this week. Liverpool did it the week before. Chelsea did it the week before that. And even though the fixtures are kind, I think you would be mad to get in United defensive coverage, because they just give up so many chances. So that's some of the good and some of the bad from Game Week 33. But as always, there is one player who stood up above the rest and did his talking on the football pitch. And what did he say this week? This is what he said: "I am so good, I deserve to be the fantasy hero of the week." Let's find out who it is.
Hero of the Week.
And this week's Fantasy Hero of the Week is a Manchester United player, but not a Manchester United defender. It's Bruno Fernandes, who seems to be carrying the weight of an entire club on his shoulders right now. We pointed out a few weeks ago that Bruno has created more big chances than everyone in this league, apart from Mo Salah, Heung-min Son and Kevin De Bruyne. But now he has started scoring goals as well. He's got 8 goals for the season, but 5 of them have come in his last 5 games. He is United's chief talisman. He is getting bonus points left, right and centre. And as we have already mentioned, United's next 3 games are delicious. So while their defensive assets are a hard avoid, if you have Bruno Fernandes in your draft team, or if you are up against a manager so dumb that they would consider giving him to your draft team, you are one lucky manager, because 6 of his 8 goals have come against teams in the bottom half of the table. And a reminder, they play Sheffield United, Burnley and Crystal Palace next. He may be a player you love to hate if you are not a Manchester United fan. He may look like a cross between a rat and a human being. I mean, get him in a purple dressing gown and you've basically got Splinter from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But sweet Lord, he is playing well right now. And that is why Bruno Fernandes is our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
Right, another game week is almost over and another game week is right around the corner, and game week 34 is a biggie. A double game week for 7 teams and some pretty good single week fixtures coming up as well. It all starts with 2 3 o'clock kickoffs on Saturday the 20th of April, and both of them are massive relegation 6-pointers. It's Luton against Brentford at Kenilworth Road. Luton's home form will decide their fate. They are 1 point from safety with 5 games to go. Brentford are now up to 32 points. They are 7 points clear of the drop zone. So let's keep an eye on them to see if they are starting to think about getting on a sun lounger and heading to the beach. It's Sheffield United against Burnley. Sheffield United lost this weekend, but their form has been much better of late, as has Burnley's, who are proving tough to beat, but cannot get those wins that would give them a fighting chance of staying up. This is a game both sides will want to win, but the likelihood is neither will survive the relegation battle, even if they get 3 points in this one. Then at 7:30 p.m. GMT, it is Wolves against Arsenal. Wolves are getting their main men back. Cunha returned this weekend. Hwang came off the bench as well. Arsenal will be going into this one off the back of a defeat to Aston Villa and off the back of a second leg Champions League tie with Bayern Munich. It is a late night kickoff. That means the pressure will be on the Gunners to keep up their title challenge in front of a live TV audience and Gary Neville. Ominous. On Sunday, we start with another relegation battle at Goodison Park. It's Everton against Nottingham Forest, an absolutely huge game at the bottom, with the winner going a long way to securing their Premier League status for another year. The loser, on the other hand, will be in deep, deep trouble down at the bottom. This is, of course, the battle of the teams who have been docked points aplenty and who desperately need some more points in order to survive. And then at 3 o'clock, it is Aston Villa against Bournemouth. Bournemouth are a particularly strange side, in my opinion. They generally fail to impress when you watch them, but they are still getting good results more often than not. They now have 4 wins and 2 draws from their last 7 matches. Aston Villa shocked Arsenal this weekend at the Emirates. They've done the double over the Gunners now, and they need a win to stay ahead of Spurs in the race for 4th place. It's Crystal Palace against West Ham at Selhurst Park. Palace will be feeling good about things after that win at Anfield. West Ham need to bounce back from their London derby defeat to Fulham as they look to qualify for Europe yet again. And then at Craven Cottage, it's Fulham against Liverpool. It feels like this could be last chance saloon for Liverpool's title hopes after that defeat to Crystal Palace this weekend. Fulham will be another tough test as Jurgen Klopp prepares to bid farewell to Merseyside. There are no matches on Monday night, but Arsenal play their second game of the week on Tuesday as the double game week teams get their second matches underway. It's a similar situation for Arsenal as it is for Liverpool. They are in must-win territory. Chelsea do give up chances, but based on the way Arsenal played against Aston Villa, you have to ask the question, will they be capable of taking those chances? And then there are 4 games on Wednesday. Wolves against Bournemouth. Gary O'Neill coming up against his old club again. He went on Sky after the reverse fixture earlier in the season and gave a big tactical team talk about how he beat Iriola, and I'm sure Iriola will want to teach him a lesson for all that gobbing off. Then it's Crystal Palace taking on Newcastle at Selhurst Park. Newcastle's late charge for Europe continues with a trip to Oliver Glasner's side. Newcastle won 4-0 at St James's Park against Palace earlier in the season. And there's a Merseyside derby to look forward to as well. Everton versus Liverpool. Everton would love to be the side that end Liverpool's title charge and ruin Jurgen Klopp's farewell tour. And they have their own business to attend to at the bottom of the table as well. It's Manchester United taking on Sheffield United at Old Trafford. United continue to leak goals at the weekend. They gave up an XGC of 2.39 against Bournemouth. Sheffield United were okay in their defeat at Brentford, and I don't think they're going to be overly intimidated about going to Old Trafford. Bruno Fernandes, though, is on fire right now, as we have discussed, and I'm sure he will lead the charge for the home side. And then the game week wraps up on Thursday night at the Amex. It's Brighton taking on Manchester City. Brighton's injury problems deepened in that draw at Burnley, with Purvis Estupiñán limping off early on. Manchester City have a very busy run of games before this one. They've got Real Madrid in the Champions League, they've got Chelsea in the FA Cup semi-final, and then they have Brighton. So, a reminder of the teams playing twice in Game Week 34. Sheffield United, who are at home to Burnley and away at Manchester United. Wolves, who are at home to Arsenal and at home to Bournemouth. Arsenal, who are away at Wolves and at home to Chelsea. Everton, who are at home to Nottingham Forest and at home to Liverpool. Bournemouth, who are away at Aston Villa and away at Wolves. Crystal Palace, who have 2 home games against West Ham and Newcastle United, and Liverpool, who have 2 away games at Fulham and Everton. Now, the first thing to say here is that I think this is a week that will go a long way to deciding who wins the title. Obviously, this week that we've just had could have gone a long way to deciding who wins the title too, but Game Week 34 promises to be more of the same, because all 3 of the title challengers have tough fixtures coming up. Arsenal go to Wolves in the late kickoff on Saturday, having gone to Munich in midweek in the Champions League. I would not be surprised to see them drop points at Molineux. Liverpool are away twice to Fulham and Everton. Fulham have got a good record against the top teams at Craven Cottage. They beat Arsenal, they beat Spurs, they beat West Ham, and Everton in a derby where they would love to be the side that spoil Liverpool's title challenge. And Manchester City won't have it easy at Brighton either. On their day, Brighton can beat anyone, and it will be City's 3rd game in 8 days. So the first thing to say here is that I do expect City, Arsenal and Liverpool to go strong in every game, and for there to be minimal rotation because of the fixtures that they face. And that, of course, will limit our draft options from those sides. The second thing to say, though, is that there are some pretty enticing single game week fixtures. So I would say, do not go tearing up your side to bring in multiple double game weekers, because there are good alternatives in the single game week fixtures too. And next week, if you do gamble too much on the double game weekers, you will be having to hit those waivers extremely hard and hope for the best as the vultures circle. Now, a few weeks ago, I said that Crystal Palace had the best fixtures of the double game weekers, and even though they've been in a bad moment recently, I think that win over Liverpool should give them a much-needed confidence boost. So they're still very much up there in terms of preferred teams for me, as are Everton. Because Sean Dyche's side got a good draw at Newcastle in Game Week 31. They then beat Burnley in Game Week 32. We're yet to see how they're going to get on against Chelsea, but their assets have gone up in my estimations as a result of recent results. They seem to respond well every time they have points docked, and they are playing a Forest side who cannot defend set pieces, and that screams bread and butter to Sean Dyche. And then they face a Liverpool side who seemingly are in turmoil. 3-0 defeat to Atalanta, 1-0 defeat to Crystal Palace. They've been vulnerable in the league and in Europe over the last few weeks. They are not keeping clean sheets. So if I was ranking the double game weekers in order of preference, and I'm not going to include Arsenal or Liverpool in this, as their assets will be extremely hard to come by on the waivers. Right now, I'd say it's between Everton and Crystal Palace for rank 1, and Everton maybe just about edge it for me. Then Crystal Palace, because they are at home to West Ham and Newcastle. Everton are also at home, of course, to Forest and Liverpool. Wolves would be my 3rd pick. They've got home games as as well against Arsenal and Bournemouth. And then probably Bournemouth. They've got 2 away games against Aston Villa and Wolves. They have been in a good moment in terms of results, even though they have flattered to deceive, in my opinion. One thing I would say about the Cherries is that even though their form has been good, their away form continues to be ropey. They've got just 1 win in their last 6 trips away from the Vitality Stadium, and both their games this week are away from the Vitality Stadium. And then finally, Sheffield United, who play Burnley at home and Manchester United away. And what I would say about Sheffield United is that even though I'm ranking them last, I still think there are good options out there from the Blades who should be on the waivers and who could well improve your points tally in game week 34. So let's find out who we should be targeting, because it is time for Waiver Wants.
The FPL Draft Zone, Waiver Wants.
And let's start with Everton, and let's start with their defenders. We have talked about Nottingham Forest's inability to defend set pieces, so James Tarkowski is high on our list this week. He has an XGI of 4.8 this season. He is underperforming that. He's got just 1 goal and 1 assist so far, but as we have discussed in previous episodes, if you're topping these stats, if your stats are looking good in the XG, the XA, the XGI, or the XGC, then you're on to something and things will come good eventually. And I can see Tarkowski causing that Forest backline some serious problems. If he is not available, Jared Branthwaite is another aerial threat, and Mikalenko and Ashley Young are other routes into that backline. Ashley Young has been playing very high up recently. We'll see how he gets on against Chelsea. Obviously, their points are more likely to come from clean sheets than towering headers. Dwight McNeil remains a good option in midfield. He will be the man delivering those dead balls into the box. So again, a very valuable option against a team like Nottingham Forest. And we've been talking up Bruno Fernandes this week and predicted he'd come good a few weeks ago, and so it has proved. Dwight McNeil has created the same number of big chances as Bruno with 14. So he is also 4th in the league for big chances created, behind only Salah, Son and KDB. So he is a very good option again this week. Unfashionable, yes. Unsexy, yes. But solid as a rock, yes. Also, even though he's been out of sorts in recent weeks, I do think Decore is overdue a return. His XG and XA stats have been hugely underwhelming recently, so that does undermine what I've just said about stats, to be fair. But he has got 6 goals and 2 assists for the season. He is currently on his longest run of the season without a return, so he is due. Will he get it in the Merseyside derby? Up front, Dominic Calvert-Lewin has 2 goals in his last 3 games. He is likely to play at least one of these games. Whether he can manage 2 games in a week is a different matter, and it's something you should probably think about if you're considering bringing him in. Crystal Palace, well, they hadn't shown much to suggest that they were worth investing in before this weekend's win over Liverpool. They hadn't won since Oliver Glasner's first game in charge against Burnley, but that win over Liverpool will change draft managers' opinions of them before their double, and they do have home fixtures coming up, 2 of them against West Ham and Newcastle. However, West Ham have only failed to score away from home 3 times this season, and Newcastle have only failed to score away from home 4 times this season, and both of those teams have a lot to play for. They're both hoping to sneak into Europe via the back door. 6th place is a very realistic target for both of them. Crystal Palace, to make things worse, have only kept 3 clean sheets at home all season, against Burnley in Oliver Glasner's first game in charge, and then way back in game week 6 and 8. So what I'm saying here is do not bother bringing in Crystal Palace defenders if you're bringing them in the hope that they will get you a clean sheet, because they probably won't. Having said that, Munoz has long been talked about as a good attacking option for the Eagles from right back. He had a good goal-scoring season last year in Belgium, and in 10 appearances for Crystal Palace this season, he has racked up an XG of 0.8, which suggests that attacking points are coming. So if you do want some Palace defensive coverage, Munoz is the man to get. If he is not available, Tyrick Mitchell obviously got an assist and maximum bonus points against Liverpool. He was playing very high up the pitch as well. And alternatively, try to get Dean Henderson in as a second goalkeeper. He's made plenty of saves over the last few weeks, and he could earn you a few extra points over the double. The likes of Eze and Mateta obviously would be great pickups if they are still available. They probably aren't. Elise maybe, having just returned from injury. Jordan Ayew is a slightly boring but safe bet in midfield. Elise did play 67 minutes at Anfield. Realistically, he won't play both of these games, but whether or not he can do enough damage in one to justify his selection, time will tell. As for Wolves, they've got 2 home games in Game Week 34, so their attacking assets should be of interest to all draft managers. Cunha has been eased back into action in recent weeks, but the hope is he'll start both of these games after his insane game week in Game Week 33. It is unlikely he will be in your waivers, but if he is, get him in. One player who could be in your waivers is Hwang. He was back in the squad this week against Forest. He got some minutes. It's unlikely he'll start both matches, but he should get minutes in at least one of them, and he could be a nice pickup if you assume he'll start one of those games. He has a very big upside, of course, as a midfielder playing in one of Wolves' front 3 positions. And with Pedro Neto still out injured and expected to miss the whole season, Pablo Sarabia is a player who is likely to play both matches. He seems to be the first choice penalty taker. He has 2 returns in his last 4, and he would be a very wise signing if you could get it over the line. Nori remains a must-have if you can get him in, calf injury dependent. He obviously missed the game at the weekend. Nelson Semedo is another route into a Wolves backline that is unlikely to be defensively solid, but may get you some attacking returns. Bournemouth have 2 away games in the Midlands to look forward to. They go to Villa and then to Wolves. They lost at home to Wolves earlier in the season and they drew 2-2 with Aston Villa. Big Dom Solanke scored in all those reverse fixtures, but he will be unavailable in most draft leagues. Semenyo would be an attacking alternative if he recovers from injury. And with Marcus Tavernier expected to miss the rest of the season, Justin Kluivert is expected to get more minutes if you want to weigh into that Bournemouth attack. He scored against Manchester United and he played 75 minutes as well, which is his longest run out of the season so far. Luis Sinistera limped off injured early on against Manchester United, which means Dango Utara is next in line for a starting place. He has a goal and an assist this season. Not exactly prolific, but he should get minutes. There's not many options worth thinking about, in my opinion, at Bournemouth, but if you do want some coverage, they are probably your best options. I wouldn't touch their defence, but there will be lots of availability there if you want to touch their defence. And then it's Sheffield United, who are a team that ordinarily you would not go near, but they have improved in recent weeks. Their fixtures are good as well. Burnley at home is an opportunity for them to pick up a rare win, and then it's Manchester United away, and Manchester United would be in the relegation zone right now based on their XGC figures. Only Luton and Sheffield United have given up more chances this season than Manchester United. Their XGC for the campaign is 63.62 goals. So Sheffield United should have plenty of chances this game week against those opponents. And that means that Ben Brereton Diaz, Gustavo Hamer, and even Ollie McBurney could be good 1 week options. And then it's on to the big guns, Arsenal and Liverpool. Both sides will have played in Europe in midweek, so keep an eye on those games for any clues as to who might be rested for the weekend. Liverpool, as ever, is a real challenge predicting who is going to play at the back for them. Kwanzaa had been given the nod of late, but Konate played against Crystal Palace. In general, I don't think Konate can play more than a game a week. That's certainly what the evidence suggests. So if he plays against Atalanta on Thursday, I think he will miss the game against Fulham, which means that Kwanzaa will probably play again. Gomez and Robertson have been sharing minutes at fullback, and to me, that is ultimately the problem. There are 2 games this week for Jurgen Klopp's side, and outside of Virgil van Dijk, it remains practically impossible to know who will be playing alongside him in that backline. And the likelihood is that whoever you pick will only start one of their 2 games. And considering that both their matches are away from home and Liverpool have just 1 clean sheet in their last 11 games, I don't think they're worth looking at. I had Gomez and Konate. I dropped them both on the waivers this week, and I'm glad I did. Outside of their defence, it's unlikely any of their big hitters are going to be available on your waivers, but if you did want some Liverpool coverage for the double, I remain a fan of Harvey Elliott. I believe in Harvey Elliott. He is available in a large chunk of leagues and should see some minutes. He's shown in recent weeks that he doesn't need many minutes to get a return either. And as for Arsenal, Well, it's a similar story to Liverpool, really, in terms of players just not being available on the waivers. Ben White has had a heavily strapped knee for quite a few weeks now, so he may share minutes with Tomiyasu at right back. Tomiyasu came on for him in that defeat to Aston Villa. Trossard and Martinelli may share minutes on the left wing. Kivior and Zinchenko may share minutes at left back. But again, you're sort of gambling on a return in one match at most rather than two. And if you do that, then you have to weigh up whether you think that they are better pickups than some other players in single game weeks. If there's a Sergio Reguilon available, for instance, is he a better pick than a Tomiyasu? I would say if you could get Trossard in, that would be a decent signing. And of course, any route into the Arsenal backline should get you 6 points plus a point off the bench if you're lucky in that second game week fixture. I cannot see them having another game week like they did against Aston Villa. So I think defensively, they are still the most reliable option that you have. So those are the double game week teams. But there are also, as I may have mentioned, some single fixtures that you should not be ruling out. And a reminder of the teams playing just once. It's Luton against Brentford at Kenilworth Road. Burnley play once. They go to Sheffield United. Nottingham Forest travel to Everton. Aston Villa are at home to Bournemouth. West Ham go to Crystal Palace. Fulham are at home to Liverpool. Chelsea face a trip to Arsenal. Manchester United take on Sheffield United. And Brighton and Manchester City meet at the Amex. So of those teams, I don't think I would be too worried about investing in the likes of Burnley, Chelsea, West Ham or Nottingham Forest assets. But Luton versus Brentford at Kenilworth Road intrigues me because it looks to me like that is a game which guarantees goals. Luton score week in, week out. Brentford went to Villa Park the other week and got 3 in game week 32. And one player who I think may have some availability now when a few weeks ago he probably didn't is Alfie Doughty. He's been quiet recently. I suspect that means some draft managers will have given up on him and dropped him. He has 1 goal and 9 assists for the season. And Luton's fixtures in the run-in are actually pretty good. After Brentford, it's Wolves, Everton, West Ham and Fulham. So if you can get Doughty in, I still think he would be a supreme pickup, as would this guy, Sergio Reguilon. Brentford have their own attacking fullback in Reguilon. He's got 2 assists at Villa. He has 5 assists in his first 10 appearances for Brentford now. He was among the bonus points again this weekend, and Brentford's fixtures are very tasty too. After Luton, they take on Everton, Fulham, Bournemouth, and Newcastle. So either of those defensive assets would be excellent business ahead of game week 34, despite the fact that they only play once. Outside of attacking defenders, the likes of Ross Barkley, Chong and Carlton Morris remain valuable squad options for Luton if you're short of an option in midfield. And Mbumo, Wissa and Tony for Brentford are obviously signings that would enhance most draft teams. Obviously, a lot of those players will not be available on the waivers, but if you are up against a manager who is hungry to fill his team with double game weekers and is so short-sighted they would consider ditching some of these players, then take advantage because, as I said, Brentford's fixtures coming up are very good indeed. Aston Villa have a decent fixture this week as well. They're at home to Bournemouth. It's unlikely they will have too much on the waivers either. Douglas Luiz remains suspended, so I would fancy Emery to find a way of accommodating Diaby, who is a goal threat when he plays, particularly against a team like Bournemouth. He got an assist in the reverse fixture earlier in the season. He has tended to do well against lesser opposition this season. He's got returns against Luton, Burnley and Wolves, so he could be an option if you're short of a midfielder, and he does play very far forward. Started against Arsenal, of course, was replaced in the end by Leon Bailey. Manchester United, well, they can't defend at all, but they are a side that have a habit of grinding out results and can score goals. Bruno Fernandes has been talked about a lot on this episode already, but the likes of him and Garnacho and Højlund will be taken. Some managers may have the option of Marcus Rashford. He could be a one-week punt if a rival manager has given up the ghost on Rashford. And Amad Diallo got a 45-minute run out against Bournemouth as well, so he could feature against the Blades as well. Fulham, well, they're no longer on the beach. They are back from their holiday. They had a lovely time. They've come back more tanned than Ben White. And Andreas Pereira was the star of their show against West Ham, so he would be a fine pickup. But Alex Iwobi got a return too, and Willian is an under-the-radar pick. He got an XGI of 0.41 against West Ham, and he is very much back in their first team if you fancy the Brazilian to do bits against Jurgen Klopp's side. Even though Fulham did pick up another clean sheet at the London Stadium, I would not be going near their defence purely because it's Liverpool they're playing, and Liverpool are not going to go another game without scoring. I just cannot see that happening. And then it's Brighton against Manchester City at the Amex. It was 1-1 in this fixture last season. Brighton had more shots than City in that one. They had more corners than City in that one. And I don't think this will be an easy game for Pep Guardiola's side. And while I would expect them to win, we all know that City love to concede a meaningless goal. It's very rare that Manchester City get clean sheets these days, so I'd be looking at a few Brighton assets here in the likelihood that all the Manchester City assets are taken. Brighton, well, they're normally hard to predict, aren't they? But De Zerbi has got no options anymore because of his injury problems. So Adingra, Welbeck and Pedro will all probably be involved against City. As I said, City options are not easy to come by, but keep an eye out for any news on Kyle Walker's injury. Pep was a little bit mysterious in his last press conference about Walker, but if you want to root into that back line, he has probably been dumped by quite a few managers, and if he doesn't make it, Rico Lewis remains a decent option if no one has been smart enough to pick him up in your draft league. So that is a look through Game Week 34's fixtures, and for me, the top double Game Week teams to target are Everton and then Crystal Palace, and then maybe look to bring in the best attacking assets you can from Wolves and Sheffield United. Yes, I did say Sheffield United. The best teams from the single game weeks for me are Luton and Brentford, where goals seem guaranteed. Aston Villa, if you can get your hands on a Diaby or even a Tielemans, given the midfield options that they have available to them. Some Manchester United attacking coverage would be nice if you assume they're going to score against Sheffield United, and maybe even a Brighton attacker in the assumption that Manchester City will do what Manchester City do, and that is win the title but concede the odd goal along the way. I do think there is a risk, of course, that managers might go mad for Game Week 34, bring in players left, right and centre who do double in the hope that they will smash it. But just remember, it is only one game week, and if you rip up your team for this week, you are going to give yourself a massive headache for the last 4 game weeks of the season. So do be careful on those waivers this week. And that is almost it for today. Game Week 34 starts on Saturday the 20th of April at 3 p.m. GMT. The deadline to make your moves is at 1:30 p.m. Your waiver deadline is a day earlier, on Friday the 19th of April at 1:30 p.m. Now, breaking news, I am actually away next week, so there will not be a pod looking back at Game Week 34 or ahead to Game Week 35. I've got to go away with work, so I'm sorry about that, but God willing, I will return for the following game week. In the meantime, please do not forget to subscribe to us on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, if you would be so kind. Please leave a review as well if you can. A massive thanks to a listener on Spotify who left a lovely review for us on there. And don't forget, we are also on social media at FPL Draft Zone on X and on Instagram. So if you have any questions, any queries, any conundrums, we would love to hear from you. I'm always happy to chat through some draft dilemmas you might have, and let us know what we can do better, what you want to hear, what you like, what you don't like about this show. Any feedback is good feedback. Until next time, good luck with all things draft, and bye for now.